Bold predictions. The 8th chapter in a very, very gripping saga that has engulfed Late Kick. It is your prediction, and it is my boldness attached to the prediction. I'm going to tell you how bold I think these are. First up tonight, LSU, year one under Brian Kelly. Well, how about this for boldness? LSU will beat Alabama in Tiger Stadium. First time in 12 years. Yep, sure would be. First stat I had written down. Haven't done it since 2010. And that was the year Bama lost 3 games. Now, there have been some close games down there, but LSU's been on the wrong side of all of them since then. The preseason win totals are already out for the SEC to give you an idea of what kind of upset this would be, at least as we sit here right now. Bama's over or under win total is 11. LSU's over under win total is 7. So there are a solid 4 games. They only play 12, guys. There are a solid 4 games in the eyes of odds makers separating these two teams. I just think this is the wrong team to have questions in your secondary against. I don't want to be replacing my entire secondary and watch the Heisman Trophy winner with a restocked cupboard of receivers and adding Jahmyr Gibbs in the backfield at running back for good measure. I don't really like that, and I've been in this building multiple times and watched Alabama come in there. It's not in the cards this year, I don't think. So I make this an 8. Why don't I make it a 10? Because I have supreme respect for the LSU environment, especially the game day atmosphere there. Like, what else would I be speaking about? Because of Tiger Stadium, this is not a 10. This is tough for me to see this year. But here's one thing to keep just in the back of your mind. Alabama went on the road last year several times against teams they were favored by double digits against. They barely beat Florida. They went to like quadruple overtime against Auburn before they won. They did not beat Texas A&M. So maybe that follows them around in year 2 with Bryce Young as a starting quarterback. We'll see. That's an 8 for me. Next up, this one's bold. J.J. McCarthy leads Michigan back to the playoff and finishes top 5 in the Heisman. This is a 9.98, only because I don't want to go to 10 yet, because we've got some foolishness later on in this segment that will be the first time we have broached the 10 on the 1 to 10 boldness scale. If you want to talk to me strictly about Michigan making the playoff, I will listen to you. It's still kind of bold, but I will absolutely listen to you because they proved a whole lot last year. They shattered the glass ceiling. Anything is possible. You get all the phrases. However, it is my opinion that if Michigan were to return to the playoff this year, it would be utilizing an offensive style totally antithetical to what would need to happen to get J.J. McCarthy in the Heisman conversation. I think they would go completely ground and pound. Josh Gaddis went off to Miami. So it's a new system, it's a new offensive coordinator, but also I think they'll revert in many ways to what did work for them last year and what's worked for them in the past. So if Michigan's winning games this year, I don't think it's because they're putting up big numbers at quarterback. And secondly, who in the world even says J.J. McCarthy is going to get the requisite snaps in order to do that? Last I checked, Cade McNamara is still alive. He didn't go anywhere. He didn't retire from football. So that may be your starter again this year. And as recently as March, I'm sitting here listening to Jim Harbaugh talk about J.J. McCarthy's shoulder. I know there's a lot of optimism out there. I'm not his doctor, nor have I talked to his doctor. So for all of those reasons, it is very hard for me to see the second part. You could maybe sell me on Michigan making another run to the playoff. I will listen to that. I don't think it's going to coincide with a J.J. McCarthy Heisman run. That's a 9.98. That's really bold. Next up, this one's fairly bold too, but not out of the realm of possibility. So I'm going to give it a 7. Here's the prediction. Will says, in fact, Will works for 24/7, so he's one of us. He says, very hot topic in the 24/7 Sports desk Slack room. I peruse it from time to time. He said, no Big 12 teams will win 10 regular season games. All right, how rare would this be? Well, 3 of them did it last year. 2 of them won 12 games last year. So Baylor won 12, Oklahoma State won 12, OU ended up winning 11 games. We go further. According to Stats and Info, we know who that is. Over the past decade, at least one double-digit winner in the conference every year, and all but 1 year, we've had at least 2 double-digit winners. So we would have to have something occur here that has not occurred in the last decade. And by the way, the last time it didn't happen was 2020, and that's when they didn't play as many games as they normally do. So yeah, this normally happens, and it normally happens more than just once. So I think this is a 7. Now, you would think, looking at the chart, if you're looking on YouTube, it never even comes close to happening. Why isn't this a 9.98 or higher? Because I think the Big 12 has some real demolition derby vibes coming out of it this year. I could see a world where we have like 4 or 5 teams with 7 or 8 wins, 9 wins in the 7 to 9 win range, but we don't have a single one cracking the double-digit win mark. I could see that. Therefore, because of that reason, I'm not going to go higher than just a 7. The demolition derby vibe, do you feel that? Do a lot of you feel that about the Big 12? Do you feel like there is a solid favorite that's going to rise out amongst the rest of the pack out there? Because Baylor won the conference last year. There's a lot of overturn there. I trust Dave Aranda implicitly, but there's a lot of turnover there. That quarterback situation is kind of fascinating. I mean, Jerry Bohannon started last year, lost the job in spring. Dave Aranda let him know he lost the job. He transferred. So that's fun to watch. At Oklahoma, we know all about the turnover there. Oklahoma State, we just did a lengthy segment the other night, and yet here I am doubting they can win 10 games again. I think one of them's going to win 10 games. So I put this at a 7. I think one of them's going to win 10 games. So this is pretty bold to me. There's the Big 12 final standings from last year, by the way. As you see, 12 wins, 11 wins. Then was the drop-off to a team that I'm about to mention in a second. Next up, another one of these Heisman predictions. I almost never get on board with it. We're going to my home state, and we're talking about Kenny McIntosh, running back for Georgia. You'll know his name this year if you don't already. Prediction, Kenny McIntosh will be in the Heisman race. I'll die on that hill. Well, I say get the coffin ready, because this is an 8. I don't think Kenny McIntosh is going to be in the Heisman conversation. That's not me doubting Kenny McIntosh. It's me knowing Georgia football. I've gone on record already. You can throw the tight ends in there. Brock Bowers is one of the best players in America. I think Kenny McIntosh will be a breakout performer at the tailback position this year. Like I said, you will know his name, even if you don't know it now. I just don't think the offensive production will be there. This is a compliment to Georgia. They have a style. They have perfected it. I don't know if you were around in January. They just won a national title. It simply does not lend itself to standout statistical offensive performances. Not only that, we're talking about a running back here. We're talking about trying to get a running back to New York City. What do you have to have there? You have to have a feature tailback. You got to have one guy carrying the lion's share of the load. Every year Kirby's been there, aside from one, they've had at least 2 guys tote it 90 times or more. They don't do it the way that some places do it where they feature a back. They don't see the upside in it. They're not trying to win Heismans. They're trying to win games, and they've gotten really good at it. So I don't even think if you were to take last year's total offensive output at the running back position and put it in one body, let's say Kenny McIntosh, it wouldn't have been good enough anyway. They were 191 rush yards per game last year. That was 37th in FBS. So you're giving me a downgraded defense, don't know how much, but a downgraded defense this year. Therefore, I may not get as many possessions. And when I do, I've got the best wide receiver stable that I've had. I just don't see how that equates to Kenny McIntosh's stat line being good enough to send to New York. He'll be plenty good enough football player. You know I'm not about the Heisman. I don't waste a lot of time on it. But you also know what it takes to win that award. And it's all about numbers. I just don't think he's going to have the numbers. So Heisman, I almost always say that because it's a hard award to win. Even if you're great, it's a hard award to win. Man, if you're playing the style of football Georgia does, that's probably not the right ingredients to send you to New York. Here's one that pains me immensely to even mention. Mike suggested that Iowa State will win 9 games and they will reach the Big 12 title game in a rugged Big 12 season. Well, I think he was accurate in describing what will be a rugged Big 12 season. I think we can all agree Iowa State is one of the greatest things that our country has ever produced. I have solid bias here. If you want to claim it, I'll beat you to the punch. I am an Iowa State fan, love the program. However, I do not find 9 wins here. I mean, Jesse informed me earlier, aka Stats and Info, that according to Bill Connolly's returning production metrics, this is a frightening statistic. They are 128th out of 131 teams in the United States of America at the FBS level when it comes to returning production. This is not the kind of program, even under Matt Campbell, that just reloads at the 9 or 10 win level every single year. When you lose an established multi-year starter at quarterback and you lose a guy like Breece Hall and you're 128th in total returning production, you don't just, you know what this program is. I know what this program is. This is not a program where you ever walk around Ames, Iowa yelling, hey, we don't rebuild, we just reload. That's not the kind of program this is. So you can have supreme respect for the staff, which I do, and still understand it would be natural to expect a little bit of a downturn this year, record-wise. Doesn't make the program any worse of a program, but man, 9 wins this year. And if you look at the schedule now, Colin probably already put it up, but if you look at their schedule, this is tough. They play Iowa. That's the out-of-conference. They do that every year. They have to go there. They got Baylor on the 24th. It's a round-robin schedule. But listen to the order of these games. Kansas State, which I think is a Big 12 sleeper, at Texas the next week. Then they have a bye. They get Oklahoma at home on a Thursday night, which is very tantalizing. And then they got West Virginia, and then they go to Oklahoma State, and then they got Texas Tech, another sleeper team to me in the Big 12 this year. There is no rest. And this is not a cupboard so loaded that you can ever afford to overlook any of these games. So that's 4 losses minimum to me. That's just the way I see the program this year. But then again, those of you who have been around a little while know how I saw the program last year. So maybe I just have a bad read on Iowa State. I would love for that to be the case at this particular time because my read on them this year is it's going to be really hard to win 9 games. So double-digit win season, maybe it's Iowa State that gets it done in the Big 12. Lastly, I need to point out something to you. So if you're listening on podcast, I'll do my best to explain to you the monstrosity of a tweet that we got. Lance does great work on our podcasting front. And that's about where the compliments will end for Lance tonight. Because not only did he make a bold prediction, he bet $1.50 of his hard-earned money on it. And that is Rutgers to win a national championship. Rutgers is at plus 50,000 odds. He's betting $1.50, mind you, to win $751.50. This is not a joke for him. This is his lifestyle. Lance, if he were in pro wrestling, he would be doing what is called living your gimmick. Oftentimes, that's a lie, every once or twice a month, I'll actually show up to a meeting on time around here. And Lance always shows up early. And he is like a wind-up doll when it comes to Rutgers. He's like the pull-a-string. Only when you pull the string on him, if you don't take the doll and throw it out the window, it just doesn't stop. It just talks about Rutgers, 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 Jersey reference, Sopranos reference, Rutgers, Rutgers, Rutgers. I swear to you he knows more about the team than Greg Schiano does, and Greg Schiano's the head coach. Could probably learn a thing or two from Lance. But this is ridiculous. This is preposterous. On a scale of 1 to 10 boldness, I've got this at a 43. So I hope you enjoyed that 150. You will not be together much longer. But I texted him today, and I told him I was putting Rutgers in the show, and he's all worried about what I'm going to say about his team up there. I'm not trashing your team, Lance. I'm just trashing you. And it's probably the way he would have wanted to go. So there is our boldness 8.0. I don't think there's any end in sight. I think we're going into a 10th chapter at least with the bold predictions. Why? Because I'm having fun with it, and you guys are really, really enjoying watching it when we put it up.